talk about what has been described as this proxy war between Trump and Pence. We're seeing it play out right now in Arizona in the gubernatorial race. Who do you think wins this? I mean, Trump has sort of had a mixed showing in terms of the candidates he's backed so far.
Yeah, Kari Lake probably is ahead in the polls, and so it'd be a surprise if Pence's candidate does win. More broadly, you know, the fascinating thing about Trump's involvement in Republican primaries, obviously his first priority has been to purge the party of people who have crossed him, rather to expand Republicans' gains this fall. But his endorsement's been most influential in really crowded races where, you know, he's made a difference for J.D. Vance or Mehmet Oz. In races where there are well-established figures who are well-known statewide, like Brad Little in Idaho or Brian Kemp in Georgia, it's made less of a difference. But in House races, I think we are really seeing a move towards the Trump wing of the party. I don't think Liz Cheney has a path to re-election in Wyoming, and I think Peter Meijer is probably going to lose his primary in Michigan next week. I'd be surprised if there are more than 2 pro-impeachment Republicans out of 10 who are members of Congress come next January.
I want to ask you about the Peter Meijer race in just a moment, but before we get there, I mean, we are seeing what could potentially be a wave election, right? And I guess the question is, could some of these candidates just benefit from that? You have a Doug Mastriano, for example, in Pennsylvania, the gubernatorial candidate, who several weeks ago, if you looked at the polls, he didn't really have a shot. Now you have Democrats propping him up, not necessarily with cash, but they think he's the preferred candidate. Do you think that those types of candidates in a wave election come out on top?
Look, Democrats aren't propping up Doug Mastriano now. He won the primary. So that effort is now to destroy Doug Mastriano from the Democrats. But look, there is a chance that some of these farther right election conspiracy believing candidates do win high-profile contests. I think Pennsylvania is uniquely problematic for Republicans, not only because Mastriano seems fixated on the 2020 results at a time when voters want to hear about the economy, but also because of Dr. Oz in the Senate race. In House races, that's where I think you really are going to see of movement towards more Trump-esque or election conspiracy embracing candidates as we see a purge of the traditional wing of the party.
So let's go to the Peter Meijer race and John Gibbs, and Democrats are, you do see them propping up John Gibbs, who's, of course, the far-right candidate there. I believe we have an ad to play. I want to play it and get your reaction on the other side. Oh, we do not have an ad. Okay, but talk about this strategy. How risky is it, do you think, for Democrats to engage in this type of strategy? Again, because we're in a potential wave election year.
Well, if Democrats wake up in 2023 and wonder why there is no more resistance to Trump in the Republican Party, it's because they'll have beaten many of the people who were remaining in the Republican Party trying to hold Trump accountable. And in Michigan's 3rd district, it's a fascinating race because you do have a Democratic opportunity. And most of these primaries that feature Trump versus Trump skeptics don't play out in swing districts. Liz Cheney, Wyoming, that's not a race Democrats are ever going to win. Michigan 3 is. They do have a top-tier candidate in attorney Hillary Scholten, who came within 6 points of Peter Meijer in 2020. Democrats are calculating that if they beat Meijer in the primary, and by the way, I think Meijer would be the underdog regardless of what Democrats do to meddle, then I believe Scholten does become the favorite to flip that Grand Rapids seat that's trending blue.
Let me ask you about your overall predictions. You recently downgraded your expectations in the House from a GOP gain of between 20 to 35 to a GOP gain of 15 to 30. So talk about this. What went into your decision?
Yeah, I don't think we're seeing this red wave ebb that much. But what has changed since Dobbs is that you have a number of Republican primaries that are pulling Republican candidates to the right, and a number of them have taken positions in favor of flat bans on abortion. For example, John Gibbs in Michigan recently told the Detroit News that he believes that many great Americans were actually conceived by rape. He favors a flat ban on abortion. Democrats are going to exploit that, and it could save suburban Democratic House incumbents in a number of races, like in the Kansas City or Minneapolis suburbs. So I do think that that could mitigate the losses that Democrats suffer, even though Republicans are still the heavy favorites to regain control of the House.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.